to progressives, let me put it that way. And we've invited a lot of people who are running to be delegates. We don't know how many have gotten elected yet. Hopefully, everybody we endorsed. But we've invited them to come. So after Delane speaks, basically, there'll be a chance to ask questions. And not just the delegates, anybody can ask questions. And if there's time, what I'd like to do is have people that are delegate candidates to spend 30 seconds and just introduce themselves to Delane and just say, I'm so-and-so, I'm running in this district, and politically, this is what I'm doing. But so we can all get to know each other. Okay, so we first met Delane in 2018 when she was running for governor, and we endorsed her, of course, as did many statewide OR groups. And she didn't beat Gavin, but there's always another opportunity to beat people and to bring the progressive values, to the world, really. So I guess we're ready. Thank you so much for being here, Delane.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you to our Revolution East Bay board for inviting me here today. I so wish we could all be together in person again, but I guess that's not going to happen for a little while. I think many of you in this call know me or know of my work as the first and only woman elected state superintendent of public instruction in California. I also represented the East Bay in the assembly for 8 years before that. My family has deep roots in California. I'm a fifth generation Californian on my mother's side of the family. I am from a union family, the daughter of a dress clerk and a Navy veteran machinist who was also the shop steward. My grandfather was a teamster back when they drove teams of horses, and I joined the California Federation of Teachers when I became a community college professor. I owe the opportunities I've had to my parents, yes, but also to the public education I was privileged to receive in California, from elementary school through graduate school. My formative experiences as an adult were aided by this Democratic Party and my time in public service, and I want to give back to the party, help elect more Democrats, more progressive Democrats, and with your help, work hard to build a party we can all be proud of. I'm running to become chair of our party because we can and we must do better. I want to bring inspiration back to our party, united in a common purpose. Yes, to win back congressional seats we just lost in November, to identify, train, and support the next generation of Democrats up and down the ballot who will champion our platform at every level of public office, and to see that our party becomes an organizing force for policies we have long believed in and which are more important than ever to see become a reality. After the November election, engaged Democrats called on me and asked me to run. They were very concerned that even in the face of a big win for the Biden-Harris team in California, we suffered major losses in targeted congressional seats and state proposition. You realize that a third of all the seats we lost in America were in California? 4. We would have been more likely to have held on to those lost seats with increased staff and outreach, better field plan, which included engaging communities of color, targeted messaging, and stronger management and organization. We needed to provide more and better resources and support up and down the ticket. We must also provide support in nonpartisan races, which build and train a bench of leaders who will step up when the time comes to run for the partisan offices. It's time to elect, appoint, and uplift more women and people of color in proportion to their numbers in our party and in elected office. My first campaign slogan in Alameda County was, "Because we can do better." I know from my decades in leadership, that's a very apt slogan for the Democratic Party in California right now. How can we do better? We can bring back the voters we lost because they did not feel heard. We can allow people to disagree with us without fear of retaliation or shunning. We can welcome healthy debate, knowing that we all want what is best for our beautiful state. We can lead with optimism, not fear. When I'm chair, we'll stand for what our platform says we stand for fighting to uplift the working class and empowering historically marginalized communities. We will be the party of Medicare for all, and we'll be for clean money and campaign finance reform, housing justice, true environmental justice, including the Green New Deal, Black Lives Matter, immigration rights, and social justice. And of course, we will make education and child development a Democratic Party priority, as the state of California Constitution says that it should be. I'll be your organizer in chief. Our voters know that these commitments are morally right and politically smart, and they deserve leaders who are ready to do the work and put their money where their mouth is. I will lead this party to heights that do not seem possible now. It's how I have led in every position I've held. I'm excited to bring that sense of enthusiasm and teamwork to the California Democratic Party, and we'll have some fun, by the way, doing it. While the California Democratic Party has not elected a woman to be our chair in over 35 years, the Republican Party elected a woman chair in 2019. Let's be clear, I've spent my whole career working to support Californians from all corners. It's yes, improving public education, promoting economic and social equality, fighting to secure a seat at the table for those of us who too often feel shut out from the backroom insiders club of politics. When I'm chair, there won't be a backroom. There will be transparency and accountability. The party I lead will reflect our democratic values, not only in its platform, but in the way we raise money to fund our work and how our decisions are made. We will engage everyone in California who shares our values and is inspired to help translate those values into action. I commit to building a party where courage is fashionable, vision is palpable, compassion and caring are the norm. So thank you again for having me. I'd love to answer any questions you have and hear your thoughts about the state of our state and what you'd like to see in the next chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Delane. So people who have questions, if they would raise their hand so we can see. Okay, Susanna Williams, I see that you have a question.
Thank you, Carol. Hi, Delane. I'm Susanna Williams. I'm out here in Antioch, Assembly District 11. I'm an incumbent B-Board rep and hoping to be reelected. I guess we'll find out on Tuesday. So I definitely supported you for the governor campaign. I'm definitely on board for big changes within our party. So my question to you is, what would your strategy, or what is your strategy with regards to the appointed standing committee chair positions and the members of those standing committees?
Well, you know, I think right now there's too much deck stacking going on. I think the party chair has way too many appointments, and that we can produce a more democratic way in the Democratic Party to fill these positions. It's just, you know, what we need to have, not me in the back room deciding by myself, but we need to have a task force that really looks at how we can reframe the way some of our positions are filled and make sure that it looks more like the regular Democratic Party and regular people, that it can't just be the insiders club anymore.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. Okay, next hand I see here is Sherry Johansson. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Delane.
Hi, Sherry.
I am a delegate through the Alameda Central Committee. And I have two kind of issues that I would like you to sort of speak on. One is I'm also president of our local Dem Club. And I really feel like the Dem clubs are sort of the grassroots of the Democratic Party, but we don't get a lot of support, I don't think, at least not in Alameda County. It's more kind of just, oh, these are who we are going to endorse. And there just doesn't seem to be a lot of support through the elections. And then my other thing that I'm interested in is the ADEMs, which I know there's a lot of candidates here that have run for the ADEMs. And I just guess I would like you to sort of say how we can do better on that election. Thank you.
Well, again, I would love to see us, a task force to help us think about how we do reframe this party's structure. There is too much insider dealing so that don't have democracy in the Democratic Party. And so I think the clubs are a really important part of having a healthy Democratic Party, to reach out to the young and the old and everybody in between, to, really stimulate the environmental groups as well as the social justice groups, as well as the, housing groups, as well as the, redevelopment groups. I mean, I was on the Union City Council, and some of you know that we actually used our redevelopment money when we still had redevelopment money, but we used it to buy up 3 big dirty factories that existed right by the BART station. And it took us several years to clean those sites. But you know what's there now? Affordable housing, market rate and affordable housing in multi-story housing units. The people that live there love it. You know why? They walk out their front door, they go down the block, around the corner, and get on the BART train. Fact is, it's 3 blocks from the elementary school. It's a block and a half from the high school. It's just over a block from the shopping centers. The reality is you can actually live in that community right now without a car, or with just maybe bicycles, or 1 car for a family of 4 or 5 even. So at the end of the day, we need to be thinking smarter. And we've got some really big sites that are absolutely fallow. But if we took the time, and you got to have some vision here, we had some great city managers, we had some great colleagues on the various commissions and the council, but we managed to, it took a while, but go down to Union City BART station. You'll be very impressed with what you see. And the fact is that it's working. And the person who took me there just before he retired was our current city manager, had been our current city manager, and fabulous man. And we went to walk around, and it was just heavenly. But you have to have some perspective. You got to have some long range thinking to make something like that happen. And that's what we need more of in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay, great. I see a number of hands up. I think the next one would be Gordon Miller. Can you unmute yourself, Gordon?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
All right.
The heart of, I think, why a lot of citizens feel that they're cut out of the action is our private campaign financing system and the role of big money in it. Are you willing to mount an effort to have public campaign financing to control this, or hopefully make it go away?
I'm for it, and I've been for it for literally my whole adult life. I joined Common Cause the year it got started. I belong to People for the American Way. I'm a member of the ACLU. I'm a card-carrying member of every environmental group you can think of that's worth a damn. And the fact is, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the talk. And I will tell you that I believe that the many other first world democratic countries do not have the best government money can buy the way we do. So I really believe it's time to get big money out of politics and have genuine debates about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And some guy once told me that I was because I talked well, I was discriminating against people that didn't talk well. Huh? Come on. Let's figure this out. We really do need to have people who can speak and can put together answers to questions like yours, and not, wink, wink what they're going to do and then never do it. Look at my record. I have a very good record in terms of what let me just say this. I led the fight for mobile home rent control in Union City. By the way, I tried to do it for apartments and mobile homes, but we realized we had to take a half a loaf. And our biggest mobile home park was a senior park. And the man who owned it was evil. And he was jacking up the rates, even though he'd gotten a huge tax break with Prop 13. And he got up with a straight face at the city council meeting and said, I'd just been elected. And he said, the Prop 13 hadn't given him that much money. It was about $8 a coach was all he got. Well, he'd gotten over $200 a coach. And the reason I knew that is I went down and pulled the records on him. And these were senior citizens, you know, they own their coaches. They rent the space, but they own the coach. But you can't move a coach. You realize there's no parks that take used coaches. And so they're essentially people that are being held hostage by these folks. And so we thank God he lied about how much money he was getting. And he also said it wasn't just that he got a property tax break. PG&E was jacking up his rates dramatically, and he had all these street lights that weren't the city's street lights. He was paying for them, and it was breaking his back. Well, it turns out he'd wired the street lights to be attached to the coaches. So it was the people that owned the coaches that were paying his electricity bill. He just got up and lied. Thank God one of the wonderful gentlemen who lived there had told me that when he found out that he was paying the electricity bill for the city streetlights because he'd backed over the streetlight and the power went out in his coach, and he figured out that it was because he was paying for the streetlight. So there's a lot of people out there that are greedy gusses, and I can tell you that the Democratic Party I lead will call them out.
It's going to be tough duty. You're going to be right in there with the money and the money boys.
I've been there, and I've stood up to them.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for your question, Gordon. Okay, let's see, the next person we're going to call on is Kabir. Are you here, Kabir?
Yeah, I'm here. How you
Okay,
doing?
good to see you.
Good to see you. I got a few questions. I wanted to know if there was anyone else in the race besides you and the incumbent. I wanted to know if there's anyone in the assembly or the state senate who's endorsed you. And then I wanted to know if you have an opinion on ranked choice voting, both within the Democratic Party and for statewide elections.
Well, I have been endorsed by some of the electeds. Anna Caballero is, for example, and Anna Eshu, who I've known for many years, and Bob Wachowski, who is in Alameda County, in Southern Alameda County, and a bunch of others. It's true you're at a slight disadvantage when the party chair is, got the support of the leadership. But at the end of the day, I have a lot of people that have been appointed by electeds who are getting the freedom to vote the way they want. So I have a lot of grassroots support, and I've got a shot at winning this. Although there's some hanky panky going on. There were some people that got ballots that hadn't asked for them, and that's scary. Let me see. What was your other question? I should have written it down. Sorry. Ranked choice voting. I think it needs. I think it needs here again some work, but I'm generally in favor of ranked choice voting. I think it's a good concept and one we should do some work on and get some people put their shoulders behind it. I just these things can be terrific if you take the time to do them right.
And then the last question was: is there anyone else in the race besides you and the incumbent?
No, just the current chair and I.
Thanks.
Okay, thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Kabir. Okay, next question is going to come from Igor Trega. Unmute yourself.
Hi, Delane.
Hi,
I
Igor.
owe you a phone call. Sorry about that, but
No.
I'm glad you're here. And just for reference, thanks to the support of progressives, including OREB East Bay, I'm the vice chair of the Alameda County Democratic Party, and I'm a co-chair on the resolutions committee. I really love everything that I heard from you. And this is a question that might come as a reprise of something you answered earlier this week at the Central Committee. My question is, what do we do? What will you do as chair to make our party platform meaningful? Right now, we have a very progressive party platform. It supports a Green New Deal. It supports Medicare for all. It supports rent control. And yet, we as a party have endorsed many legislators who are, through their words and deeds, diametrically opposed to that. And that's one of the reasons the governor has not really moved on any of these, particularly the Medicare for all piece. I understand the need to not have a one size fits all solution. There are going to be more purple areas, obviously. But what will you do to ensure that not just the platform, but the bills that we endorse or oppose as a party, or the resolutions that we endorse, actually mean something? How will we hold legislators accountable each time that they come before us for re-endorsement?
Well, that's a great question, Igor. And you need to know that I have always put my money where my mouth is. So when I ran to for the city council in Union City, I promised that I would fight for mobile home rent control, and I managed to get it passed my very first year in office, and I was very successful in getting the city to cooperate with the school district. We started building schools on city parks and co-maintaining them, and we worked to stop throwing parents in jail because their kids were not coming to school. We instead worked to get the parents to get the kids to come to school. And that's the reason there's a school named after me in Union City, because I really did forge the first really strong partnership between our city and our schools. End of the day, what I do is I put my money where my mouth is. And I will tell you that we really do need to hold people accountable for what they say they're going to do when they run for office. I told you all in Alameda County and part of Santa Clara County, but most of my district was Alameda County, that I would fight to improve education. And I did. And in fact, when I became superintendent of public instruction, we were 47th in per pupil spending. And I sued Pete Wilson more than once. And when I left office, we were in 8 years, we moved from 47th to 27th in per pupil spending. But guess what? We have a bigger Democratic majority now than we did then, and we're losing ground. There are by some estimates, we are 39th in per pupil spending. You know what we're number one in? Per prisoner expenditure. Let me see the hands of everybody who thinks that's a good idea. No, I haven't found anybody who thinks we ought to be number one in per prisoner and number 39 in per pupil. It ain't right. And so let us together work on the values that we hold and make sure the budget of the state is a budget of a statement of the values of the people in the state. And if we do that, we will, in fact, transform California for the better. When I graduated from high school, by the way, we were 5th of the 50 states in per pupil spending. Those people who had so little, who had come out of a depression and a war, managed to figure out how to be 5th. We're richer now than we were then, and we're doing more by our kids. And by the way, we have less child development than you find in Georgia and Florida and Oklahoma. Let that sink in now. The fact is, you've heard the news this week. More women are losing their jobs than any other group because women are the ones who go home and take care of the children when the schools are closed. And so we need to understand, by the way, most of the first world has comprehensive child care and child development. For us not to have it in the state of California is disgraceful. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you so much, Igor. I see 2 more hands up, and we're going to call on them. But if there's people that are having trouble One person had trouble a few minutes ago getting the hand thing, but you'd like to ask a question, put it in the chat and hopefully we'll see it. Okay, so the next person is Berkeley City Councilwoman Kate Harrison. Kate,
Yeah.
be sure to unmute yourself.
I have. Thank you, Carol, and thank you for Delane for coming today. I want to give you a chance in this forum to, I am a current delegate and I'm running again to be a delegate, I should say. I want to give you a chance in this forum to address the issues about your record vis-a-vis unions. I think this is a big concern for those of us that see union jobs as a path to the middle class. And I'm hoping that you'll talk a little bit about the issue of charter schools and also this issue of the single time, I believe, that you crossed a picket line and what your position is on labor, how we can bring labor in. If you were to win, how would you work with them as they're quite upset about these issues? And I'd just like to hear more about that piece of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Well, first, you should know that my grandfather was a teamster back when they drove teams of horses. He delivered bread in San Francisco from a horse-drawn wagon. Later, when he bought the old 7 Mile House, some of you know the bar out by the Cow Palace, the day he opened the bar, the day he and his partner bought it, he went down and got his bartender union card. My father was the shop steward for the International Association of Machinists at the company he worked in. I was a member of California Federation of Teachers. The people that are trying to discredit me want to say, well, I had a charter school bill. Well, for the record, my charter school bill called for collective bargaining and said that you had to be chartered in the district where your school was. Gary Hart's bill was signed, mine was vetoed. So I am a union person, and the picket line that I crossed, I had flown down to Southern California to speak at a college graduation. And at the very last minute, somebody told me there was a picket line. And the question was, do I go? I don't know about you all, but I'm the first in my family to go to college. People came to my graduation from far away because it was such a big deal. Nobody had ever graduated from college before. And so I thought about my mother and father and aunts and uncles and grandparents who showed up at UC Davis to see me walk in graduation. And I made a decision. I wasn't getting paid. I crossed the line for the students and their families, not to make a statement against labor, but it would have been nice if somebody had let me know in advance that there was a picket line. And there was no advantage to me. It was a disadvantage for me to cross that line. But I did it for the students. And I have to tell you, it was a very hard decision, but I did it for the students.
Can you ask that last part of my question, which is about if you're to win, how will you bring some of organized labor who's upset about these issues back into the fold to work with you? What is your plan?
Well, I've always worked with organized labor, just so you know. My whole career, I've been supported by organized labor in all the races that I've run for. I am a labor person. And, you know, in fact, my brother was in the union. My husband was in a union. I was in a union. My nephew's in a union. The truth is that you know, we're a labor family. And the bottom line is I don't go to Walmart. Okay? I'm a person who really does put my money where my mouth is. Walmart's not a union company. I don't go there. And at the end of the day, you know, you can see that look at every time I have run for office, the vast majority of labor has supported me. Always.
Thank you very much for addressing that directly. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate.
Okay, thank you very much. We have two more questions. One is somebody that can't raise their hand, but I'll call them in a minute. And the next question with the hand up is Jake Varghese, who is a member of the OR board. Go ahead, Jake, make sure you're unmuted.
Yeah, hi, can everyone hear me? Great.
Yep.
All right, cool. So, Delane, just real quick, I wanted to go back to charter schools and talk about basically that and the privatization of public education. Right now in Indiana, they just passed a bill where 75% of the money goes to 4% of the private schools, which is charter schools, and then the remaining 175 for 96% of the schools. And so I was wondering, how are you going to help fight against more charterization of and destruction of public education?
I'm going to fight to make sure that we do, in fact, toughen the rules for getting a charter. You shouldn't be able to get a charter from some district that isn't even in your county, that doesn't do oversight. And let's just understand something, though. A lot of people don't realize one of the biggest proponents of charter schools was a guy named Al Shanker. You know who he was? He was head of
Yes.
the American Federation of Teachers. And he believed that sometimes people at a site wanted to get together to do something different. Maybe it was to have a music theme at a school. So Al Shanker supported charter schools. But of course he wanted collective bargaining. Of course he wanted them to be governed by the district that owned the building. Of course he wanted them to be playing by the rules everybody else plays by. He didn't want them to be, cowboys. And there is a charter, for example, that operates out of all the Job Corps sites. These are young men and young women, many of whom dropped out of high school at 13, 14, 15. Some went to jail. Some of them got pregnant. Some of them were just behind and joined a gang and fell off the radar. But many schools don't want those kids when they come back at the age of 17 because they're not going to graduate. First, they're emancipated minors, so there's no parent oversight. Second, sometimes are parents themselves, sometimes have children responsibility themselves. And third, many of them have real issues if you leave school when you're 13 and come back at 17 and you were behind when you left, you have some real educational barriers to success. And so this particular chartered school is out of Vista in San Diego County. And so it's the exception that proves the rule. It operates out of the Job Corps sites. Many of the students live at the Job Corps site because they can't go home to their families. And these are kids that may not graduate until 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. But the fact is they come out of those schools with a skill. And not all of them graduate. Some of them get their GED. But they get a skill because they're working in a Job Corps site. We have to be a little more nimble here about some of these kids because otherwise we're just going to write them off. And I'm not for that.
Neither
and again,
am I.
there are starters that are themed on music, some that are themed on art, some that are themed on science. And so there are some charters that are doing what Al Shanker wanted them to do in a way he wanted them to do it. And then there are some complete, disgraces and dysfunctional entities that are not what we would imagine and not what we want. We got to tighten the rules, make it much more accountability, and not allow them to cherry pick the best and the brightest. For example, there was a school I heard of where they told the special needs child, the parents were told they can't bring your child here. We don't have a special ed teacher. Well, that's illegal, just for the record. That's not allowed in California. But nobody was there to oversee it. And so we got to get a lot more requirements and rules and regulations that somebody has the responsibility to uphold.
Why is it necessary to create a special private type of entity to do that when we could just make our public schools better?
It doesn't many of them are not private. Many of them are public schools like Sciatech, the one I was talking about that operates out of the Job Corps centers. That is a public school. And there are others that are public schools.
Has that been tested? Because in court, court in California, many of those charter schools have claimed to be private schools so they can avoid any kind of accountability.
They are not supposed to be private schools. They're supposed to play by the public rules. And that's what we have to tighten up and make sure that they don't do that. But it's not intended when the image that Al Shanker had was not that.
Yes, that is true. He also disavowed charter schools less than 10 years after he came up with them because he knew they were what was happening to them. They were becoming used for privatization. That's what's happening all over the country. I don't know why we keep why we need to. Yes, there are some. There are also some schools. There are also some public schools that are wonderful, but no one ever talks about them. There are there are many public schools.
I did the distinguished schools, and I actually went out of my way to make the California distinguished schools much more of a celebration, much more of a real honest to God acknowledgement of greatness. And I did it especially, and I went to those schools, I visited them. And I've had people come up to me on the street and say, you don't know me, but you came to my school when we got our Distinguished School Award. Bottom line, Jake, is there's a bunch of misinformation out there, and you really do need to, be careful and make sure that you're telling, not every charter school is what you're describing.
No, not every charter school is. Too many of them is the problem.
And that's what we need to fix.
So, okay. Okay.
Okay, are you finished? Right, okay, for the next person, we're gonna have Cheryl. I don't know how to say your last name, Saduth? Make sure you're unmuted so you can speak.
Yes, it's started. Just two things really quick. On the issue that Kate Harrison brought up, there's two things. On the issue of crossing the picket line, I want to say two things on that one. There was a picket line in Oakland at the masjid at the International Cultural Center in Northern California when Libby Chef was speaking. And I just want to say, I was going in for prayer and they were picketing in front of the Islamic Center. And I needed to go in for prayer. And Libby Chef was coming to speak. My husband is a longshoreman. And we have a long-standing rule not to break a picket line. So I went around the back door and I spoke. I asked to see who was in charge. And they pointed me to the people who were in charge. And I asked to speak to them. And I explained to them that I needed to go in for prayer at the masjid. And they said, come with me. And they walked me around. And then they spoke to their fellow members. And they said, this young lady needs to go in for prayer. And they walked me around and they walked me in. They opened the door. They said, she is going through so that I did not have to break the picket line. And they allowed me to walk in so that it wasn't an issue, so that we reached a mutual understanding. I say that to you because your explanation of why you wanted to go through and it's admirable, you wanted to speak and you had an obligation, and it's a good explanation, but it was a communication. That's all that you had to do, was communicate with the union members. Why you were there, why you were there. On the issue of
What is happening here on you keep
Jennifer,
getting interrupted with something else coming up, Sudi.
We're being Zoom bombed, and whoever is the host can block whoever is doing the Zoom bombing.
Jennifer Harris.
Hold on a minute while we do this. Did anybody?
I removed that.
It's removed.
I did.
Okay.
I removed.
Okay.
Their name was Jennifer Harris.
What was the name?
The name was Jennifer Harris.
Jennifer Harris. Okay, I don't know that name, but I apologize for the interruption. Go ahead and finish.
It's okay. The other thing I wanted to know is what is your plan for, and I just said that just so you know, that that's kind of, and I can't speak for Miss Kate, but for me, I think that's what I was looking for. And the other thing I wanted to know is there seems to be this habit of rotating politicians into these positions. And I wanted to know from you, what is the plan to build the bench so that we have some real new voices and some real new insights and perspectives that's coming along? Because we don't have this. We don't have, we keep hearing that every time somebody runs for one of these positions, they say this, but then we don't see it. We don't see these, you know, our next generation, and I'm talking about my generation, this Generation X, and then generation, you know, the generation, the millennials coming behind. We don't see where there's true building of the bench and support for people coming behind. We just keep seeing the same politicians getting recycled from position to position to position, and no real desire to ensure that we're getting a true, diverse, and inclusive perspective from other people to let the next generation, meaning our generation, actually move into positions of influence and power. So what is your plan for that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think I mentioned that it's several fold. One of my plans is that the Democratic Party should get more involved in nonpartisan races so that we build a bench and we have a bunch of people that are ready to run, young people that are ready to run. For the record, I served as chair of the 18th Assembly District Committee before I was elected to any other office. I was involved in local Democratic politics a long time ago. I've actually been off the political stage since 2003. I wouldn't be here now if a bunch of people hadn't called me and begged me to run. The fact is that I want to go out there all across California, and that includes red, purple, and blue counties, and recruit and get people to run for office. Because let me tell you something. If you serve in local office, you enter, when you finally do run for a partisan race, you are so much more equipped to serve because you've learned about budgeting. You've learned about speaking in public. You've learned about a bunch of policy issues. I'm a fanatic about education. When I got to Sacramento as an assemblywoman, the speaker would not put me on the education committee because I hadn't been on a school board and I didn't have kids of my own. So why would I care about education? Really, you can't make this stuff up. I hope you all care about education, whether you have kids or not. Education is the most important single thing the state of California does. And if we do a good job educating, we don't have to incarcerate. But I digress. Bottom line is, when I couldn't get on the education committee, the speaker said, I'll put you on every other committee you want to be on. So I just went on all the committees that I had had a role in as a local government person. So I was on, you all know Stop Waste in Alameda County. I was on that board for 6.5 years. I know more about garbage than most people you know. So I wrote the biggest landfill cleanup bill in the history of California. The fact is, there were a few very progressive communities like Berkeley, Kate, you know this, you were one of the groundbreakers. But the bottom line is a lot of cities in Alameda County weren't doing squat about recycling until we started to force the issue. But then it was only Alameda County and a little bit in a few other counties. But because I was on the committee, environmental waste, in environmental toxic materials and environmental waste, I wound up writing the biggest landfill cleanup bill in history. And it, by the way, it helped to clean up the site in San Leandro that was such a mess. And there was one in, over in Brisbane. There was one in Mountain View. And so we had a lot of old landfills already. But what I learned when I served on the Waste Authority, they exposed us to information about what other countries were doing. We were throwing away tires. We're still throwing away tires. Really stupid. Most of Europe, they grind them up and put them in the roadbed. This is really a waste of land. And then when Alameda County made the big new dump at Altamont, San Francisco just wanted to barge in and dump their stuff there. And we had to go to court toe to toe with them to make them at least pay a lot more to be able to dump there. But in fact, California shouldn't have all these big garbage dumps. It's not healthy. We ought to be recycling ever so much more. And so I was the first woman and the first member of the assembly to win the Metropolitan Transportation Legislator of the Year award. I wrote some really important legislation. We were only the second county. Santa Clara was the first, Alameda and Fresno were the second counties to pass a half-cent sales tax. But Caltrans was telling us we were going to have to wait 20 years to build those roads that we had raised money to do. So I went in and went toe to toe with Caltrans. We passed a bill that said if you pass a half-cent sales tax, you go to the front of the line. And there were a whole series of bills that are not sexy, but they were very important to Alameda County. And I was able to do them because of my work as a city councilwoman. And I can tell you, Kate knows a lot more than a lot of professors at Cal about public policy in Berkeley. It just is like the best school you could be in, is to be in local government. So I want the state not only to be more involved in nonpartisan races, but to go to red counties. And guess what? You guys have noticed some of your relatives are moving out of the Bay Area. They're moving out of LA. They're moving out of San Diego. Do you realize that Placer County just had a 15% jump in growth? Why? You sell a 3-bedroom, 2-bath tract house in the Bay Area and you buy the Ponderosa up in the gold country. So we're having a sea change right now. And that could be a political sea change if you've got a chair of the party that's nimble enough to make it a sea change. I don't need to do this. I'm doing it because I really do think, first, I can't tell you how many of my friends telling me their own kids are not registering as Democrats because they don't believe we stand for anything. We talk a good game, but why are we not walking the talk? And that's what I want to do. And that's what I've always done.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have one more question and we're way past time. So Matthew, if you ask this question, it needs to be asked very quickly and she needs to answer very quickly. This cannot be long drawn out. We're way past time. So do you need to ask it, Matthew?
I'll ask it really quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
So my question is, so a big thing that like
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Not really. Get closer to your microphone or something.
Skip me. I'm having audio troubles. Skip me.
Okay, I think we're just going to skip this then. He just sent me a chat. So Delane, thank you so much. So what we're doing is we've got 3 candidates here and we're putting together our ballot and we're going to be sending it out in a day or two to actual members. So it'll be probably late in the week when we get any results in.
Thank you so much. I lived in Berkeley. I lived in Union City. I lived in Fremont when I got reapportioned out of my house in Union City. But I've been to each and every community in our county in the East Bay. And I will just tell you that I think it's a little piece of heaven. I'd be honored, very honored to have your support. Thank you all very, very much for listening.
Yeah, I'm not a delegate. I only wish I could vote for you at that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm going to go get on another call, but thanks everybody.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, okay, now we're moving to 2 more candidates, and who we have now is Pamela Price, who I think most of you know very well, and Joanne Walker, who I don't think any of us know very well. And they're running as a team, actually, to turn around the justice system in Alameda County. So I think we'll start first with Pamela introducing herself and talking about herself, and then we'll have Joanne do the same, and then the two of them can talk together and answer questions together on, depending on whatever people ask about how they're working as a team and what they want to accomplish. It's going to be a big deal if they get elected, guys. Anyway, so Pamela, we've known a long time. She's been a real good friend of our Revolution East Bay. We first met her in 2017 when she showed up at a meeting and wanted to talk about her campaign and everything. And we were all very impressed. And some of us worked on her campaign, and we've worked on other campaigns for her. And we are thrilled that she's here today and running again. Okay, go ahead, Pamela.
All right, thank you, Carol, and hello, everybody. It is good to see you all. Most of you I do know, and you do know me. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I'm a member of our revolution. I've been endorsed by our revolution. I'm a fighter for justice, and I'm running again because I'm a drum major for justice. Most of you know my story. I'm a survivor of the Ohio juvenile justice and foster care systems. I've been engaged in the civil rights movement since I was 13 years old. I got arrested in a civil rights demonstration. I was following the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Although he was for peace, at that time I was pretty wound up and unruly as a youngster. And I walked away from foster care when I was 16 years old, because I felt like I could do bad by myself, and I could do bad by myself. But I'm here today, and I've been able to have a wonderful career and make it literally from the streets of Cincinnati to the United States Supreme Court, because 3 women, Amy Jenkins, Lorena O'Donnell, and Alice Aaron, kept their hands on me because they saw something in me that they would not let me throw my life away. And I always honor them. And I always tell people, don't ever give up on a kid, because you don't know where that child is going to go. No one saw me as a lawyer, as a high school graduate, as someone that could go to Yale. But all of that happened. And in 2002, I was blessed to be able to successfully argue a case in the United States Supreme Court. So I have lived every lawyer's dream. I've had a great legal career, living my making as a civil rights lawyer and representing everyday people, able to stand in the gap for people who needed a voice, who needed somebody that believed in justice, that had hope that somehow we could get justice out of a system that was completely rigged against us. And I knew that every case I took, and I'm not under any illusions, and never have been. Before Dr. King was killed, maybe, but not since 1968 have I had any illusions about the criminal justice system. And so when I was asked to run for district attorney in 2017, it was a sea change for me. Like many of you, I thought, what does a district attorney do? Those are evil people. Who would want to be bothered with them? And I had to be persuaded. And I was persuaded in large part by a young man named Adam Foss. And he did a TED Talk. It's online. If you Google Adam Foss TED Talk, he was a young deputy district attorney in Boston. And he did this incredible recitation about what it meant to be a prosecutor who actually cared about people and who wanted to change lives and not ruin them. And I heard him say that we need to hire prosecutors who want to change lives and not ruin them. And as a person who is a survivor of the juvenile justice system and who was prosecuted by the Alameda County District Attorney's Office as a young woman, I thought that's a revolutionary concept, a prosecutor that wants to change lives and not ruin them. So that's exactly what I've decided to do. I decided that the person who hires them is the district attorney. And in 2020, I had to make a hard decision because we ran a hard race. It was hard. We were the first campaign to challenge a sitting district attorney since 1966. And most of us had never voted for a district attorney. Unless you were 21 years old in 1966, you never voted for a DA in Alameda County. And many people didn't know it was an elected position. And so we hit a brick wall, a stone wall, but we hit it hard. We got 42% of the vote, and we learned a lot. And I'm a person that if you learn something, you better know how to use it. Last summer, I learned about a case of a young man named Jody Woodfox, who was murdered in Oakland by an Oakland police officer. We know that this happens often. I've worked on some of those cases. I've represented some of the families. I've been an advocate with the Coalition for Police Accountability on situations where OPD officers, as well as Hayward and Fremont, across this county, police officers have murdered people, Berkeley. So we know that that unfortunately is not unusual. What was unusual and touched me in 2020 about this case was that the district attorney had written a report clearing the officer. And for 12 years, that was the only public information about what happened to Jody Woodfox. And basically she said he was a threat to the police officer. The officer feared for his life. And so therefore he shot an unarmed Black man. What she did not say was that this was the second unarmed Black man that this officer had shot in 6 months. What she did not say was that OPD had actually fired this officer for wrongful killing of an unarmed civilian, that this officer had managed to get his job back. He had gone through an appeals process and gotten rehired. And what she did not say is that this officer continued to be employed by OPD and is now a homicide detective in the Oakland Police Department. And I thought, how can we have someone who kills people investigating homicides in Oakland, and wonder why we are not able to solve homicides in Oakland? And I know that we're not, because I've represented families whose children were killed in gun violence in Oakland and other places. And I've represented the first female homicide detective in Sacramento County, who alerted me to something called the homicide solve rate. And she and her partner had an 80% homicide solve rate before she was retaliated against by the sheriff. And in that case, I asked her, well, what does that mean? And she explained that to me, that they have the ability to solve homicides, and in 80% of their cases, they solved homicides. And so I came home and I said, well, let me find out what the solve rate for homicides is in Oakland. And I found out that the solve rate for homicides in Oakland is only 30%, which tells me that we are heavily overinvested in policing, and we are not getting good service. And the one person who has the power to hold police officers accountable when they engage in misconduct, whether it's an unlawful killing or exploitation, sexual exploitation, or abuse of power and authority, the one person that can hold them accountable directly is the district attorney. And so last summer, I started getting text messages and emails about this report. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And for me, that was the final straw that I said, I cannot walk away. Trust me, I was on my way to Maui, y'all. Okay, I have a vision about where my life should be. But it got changed. And I'm here again because we have to challenge injustice. Dr. King said injustice anywhere is injustice. It's a threat to justice everywhere. And our Alameda County criminal justice system is operating fundamentally in unjust manners. So I'm going to talk about the three differences that I will bring to that office. And then I'm overjoyed to introduce my slate mate, Officer Joanne Walker. Three things quickly. Number one, I will address the racial disparities that have infected our criminal justice system. Black people are less than 12% of the population in Alameda County, but we are 49% of the people on probation and 50% of the people in Santa Rita County Jail. If you're a Black person in Alameda County, we are 20 times more likely to be incarcerated than a white person in this county. Okay. Black children are less than 13% of the population in Alameda County, but they are 60% of all juvenile felony arrests in this county. Latino children are 23%, almost 26% of all felony juvenile arrests in this county. That means 86% of all felony juvenile arrests in Alameda County are Black or brown children. That is a completely unacceptable statistic, and it has been true and increasing for decades. Number two, I will address the desperate need for police accountability in this county, as well as public official accountability. I will establish a public accountability unit that will address not only police misconduct of any sort, that will establish standards for police officers across the county so that each individual department is not deciding what it means, how they're going to release records pursuant to AB 1421, or how they're going to arrest people, and what use of force means in each little department. That has to stop. So I will address that. And number three, I will implement the criminal justice reforms that our county has overwhelmingly passed. Nancy O'Malley for decades has been out of step with the people of Alameda County. In 2011, in 2006, actually, Arnold Schwarzenegger, of all people, renamed the California Department of Corrections, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And in 2011, the federal court placed the California state prisons in receivership and began the process of, actually, he started in 1995, but it finally took hold a decade later. And then we started the process in 2011 of something called realignment, which meant that we were now shifting incarceration from the state prisons to the county facilities, and billions of dollars was reallocated to the sheriff as well as the district attorney to address the realignment process, and the probation department as well. But our district attorney has been out of step with the electorate. In 2012, we voted overwhelmingly in favor of Proposition 36 to reduce felonies and misdemeanors, to modify the 3 strikes law. Our district attorney was opposed to Proposition 36. In 2014, we voted overwhelmingly, like 78%, in favor of Proposition 47, again, to reduce penalties. Our district attorney actively campaigned against Proposition 47. In 2016, we voted overwhelmingly, like 78%, in favor of Proposition 57 to stop the district attorney from prosecuting juveniles as adults, and to, again, reduce some felonies to misdemeanors. Our DA opposed that measure. Our legislature has passed a number of measures from everything from abolishing juvenile fines and fees to wiping the record clean for people who have been charged or we've had these fines and fees imposed on families for juvenile incarceration, and not that the juvenile was found guilty, just the fact that your kid got arrested resulted in you having a bill from the county for juvenile fines and fees. And our district attorney's office has a special unit to enforce those fines and fees. We are criminalizing young people. We are criminalizing poverty. We are stripping particularly Black and brown communities of wealth and of resources to finance and fund our criminal justice system. And the legislature had to put an end to that. But before that, Alameda County was leading and proudly bragging about how many fines and fees they imposed on people, and they collected from poor people. Most of them were uncollected, which is why the legislature also had to pass a bill saying we're going to wipe the slate clean, because this was just debt. It was showing up on people's credit reports and making it harder for you to rent a house or get a job or get credit because you owe the county of Alameda a fine or a fee based on incarceration, not conviction, but incarceration. That has to stop. Those are the kinds of things that have gone on in Alameda County and have been tolerated by our elected officials, condoned by some, but mainly done in the dark, in silence, because we never had an opportunity to question the district attorney's office or what the policies were for the administration of justice. The DA, the sheriff, probation, the public defender, they're all part of the public safety division of Alameda County. The DA has a tremendous influence on the administration of justice in this county. And as a drum major for justice, I can tell you, commit to you that we will have a new vision of justice. We will not have a double standard. We will bring equity and fairness and eliminate the kinds of injustices that have occurred over decades. I want to introduce to you my friend, my client, someone I met in the course of my practice, Officer Joanne Walker, who is a 25-year veteran of the San Francisco Police Department. She is a graduate of Cal State East Bay. She holds 3 degrees from Cal State East Bay, including a BA in French, a BA in physical education, and a master's degree in kinesiology. She has taught at Cal State East Bay since 1990. She has taught at the Police Academy for more than 7 years. She has volunteered on the Alameda County Suicide Prevention Crisis Hotline on her own time, in addition to her regular day job. She has focused on police and law enforcement response to mentally disturbed and emotionally distraught individuals. She has focused on domestic violence and the response to that. She is extremely well qualified to address the kinds of injustices that we have seen in Alameda County under the tenure of Sheriff Ahern, the sheriff before him, and the sheriff before him. Because don't get it twisted, in Alameda County, what has happened is that for decades, these positions have been passed down from one white male to the next white male to the next white male, and it has been all about preserving and protecting the edifice of white supremacy inside the criminal justice system. And so it is ground shaking and earth breaking. I guess I should say earth shaking and ground breaking for Joanne Walker, a Black woman, to be elected sheriff in Alameda County. When she is elected, she will be the first Black woman ever elected sheriff as a county sheriff in the state of California. So I am honored to introduce you all to Joanne Walker, and you will hear what I heard that led me to say, yeah, she the one. That's that woman. So Joanne, you have the floor. And thank you all for having us.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And it is really, truly my honor to be here. I know that I'm unknown to you, so I'm going to give you a little bit of history so you understand how I got to this journey in life. I walked in a bank. There was an officer there working overtime. He saw me and he said, "Lady, I don't know what you do, but you need to come into law enforcement." I thought he was crazy, and I told him so. He went on to tell me that he was looking right at me and I needed to come in. From that day until the day I came in, it felt like he was in my life every single day, because every time I saw him, he was demonstrating what good police work is all about. I saw him go from a regular officer to a field training officer to a super sergeant to a lieutenant, and he tested twice to become a captain. In between all that time, he made sure that he kept in contact with me. He wanted to be sure that I was going to college, that I was fulfilling my dreams to become someone who was going to do something to make the world a better place. He would always ask me about my aspirations and my dreams, and it never included law enforcement, but he kept pushing law enforcement, stating that we're going to be looking for people just like you one day. After the 10th year, when I had not come in, he said, "What do I need to do to teach you or to show you or to tell you so that you can understand that this is a honorable career?" I said, "You need to tell me how I can make the lives of people better, not just how I can arrest people, but how can I make it to improve the quality of lives of all the people who live wherever I'm going to be?" The very next day, he had a list of things for me. Long story short, after 16 years, on the 16th year in December, that was when I came in. That year he gave up and didn't think I was going to come in. He heard about it and said, congratulations, you're now on your way. You're going to be fine. You're going to be excellent. From that day until today, I have worked very hard to educate myself, to understand what some of the issues and concerns are, and to put myself in a position where I could at least have the conversation with others, train others, and help others to see that we need to see policing and criminal justice from another vision, from another view. We've got to change from using the old way of seeing everyone as criminals or good people. That's it. They can't be in between. They're either a criminal or they're good people. And we don't pay attention to the evidence that speaks otherwise to us, even though they tell us in the academy that that's what we're supposed to do. So Pamela's experience with me was just like my mentor. I said, no, you must be crazy. So she gave me a year to think about it. I thought about it. I looked around to see all of the things that I was doing in San Francisco and how similar they were to what was going on in Alameda County. Then I began to read and do some research. And I found out that there were some things happening at Santa Rita Jail that really bothered me. And I came up with this. There are three things that I'm very interested in. One is accountability. The other one is criminal justice reform. And the third one is all about the community. How can I stabilize communities in Alameda County so that people feel a sense of safety, and where young people and older people alike feel like their lives matter, that there is something, that they are an intricate part of the fiber that makes up Alameda County. Well, if they don't trust the police, they're not going to feel too good about themselves. They're not going to feel too good about their communities. What can I do to stop that? There are some things that I can do that I know would be very helpful for communities so that they understand that the police do understand that you're going through some things, and we can give you and connect you with resources to help you through. Because every family that I've ever visited has always had some underlying situation that caused someone in their family to act out. You cannot arrest your way out of everything. However, I want to say this, that our male co-workers and I'll just say partners in the criminal justice system would lead you to believe that Pamela and I are soft on crime. That is not what we are, and that's a false narrative. What we do is we have a vision on how we can get the results that we want that are different than the model that's being used currently. We're intelligent, we're smart, and we're capable, and we understand what's going on out here. We need to be given the opportunity to show those residents in Alameda County that you can trust us to do what we tell you we're going to do. The other thing is about justice reform, and Pam has already alluded to things that we need to look at when it comes to the teenagers. What I want to add to that is that many times teenagers are looked upon as little adults. They are not. They're teenagers. Their brains are not developed fully. Their brains will not be fully developed until they're between the ages of 25 and 27 years old. If we understand the science of that, why would we take a person who is inexperienced in life, who doesn't have, their brain is not physically developed, the frontal lobe, the part that is responsible for making decisions, put them into the juvenile justice system in isolation, treat them and provide sentences as though they are adults, tie up their lives for 50, 60 years, then let them come out of the state penitentiary without any training, without any infrastructure to help them learn so that they can develop tools to become a responsible citizen, and then think they're going to be okay. That doesn't make sense to me. I know that we can do better. And in my career, my entire career has been based on how we can improve services. That's why I taught at the academy. The classes, hate crimes first. Because when people feel that others are different from them, they begin to pay attention to those signs. Even when the person is not violent, in the individual's mind, their perception is that the other person is violent toward them. So how do you break that down? We talked about implicit bias, we talked about explicit bias, and we also talked about uh, the thing that is very important in life, and that is cultural competency. How do I get to know you? How is it that you move through the world? Why is it that I need to pay attention to certain holidays? What are certain things that you do that are different than what I do? Oh, that's not really violent. That's just different. You got to get people talking before there is a crime that takes place or before there is a feeling of threat from anyone to, it doesn't matter who. If they feel that they are under threat, then they go back to a tribal way of dealing with the outsiders, the others. So we want to stop that. We want to build community, but it starts with us. It starts with those people in uniform, those people who have been hired to keep the public safe, to give a consistent message, and to follow through with what they say they are running for, what they believe in, and what those beliefs and values should be for the community. But we don't get a chance to just be the ones who talk about it. We have to also get information from the community, because they are going to receive the governance that occurs with us. So for the jail itself, I'm very disturbed when I hear that a woman goes in, she is arrested, she's pregnant, and she gives birth to a child on a dirty, unsterile floor without any medication, without any help, and without anyone making sure that that newborn is okay. She had to sue. Very concerned about people who go in and they are supposed to be normal, but then they come out and they are dead. That shouldn't be the norm. We shouldn't accept it. It shouldn't be tolerated. And it destabilizes families. And when families, then the community is destabilized. That's the bottom line. So what are we going to do to stop that? Well, you got to put something in place that people understand that there are policies and procedures that you will follow, and that the people who are under your command will follow, to ensure that your family member is okay. We have got to do that. You don't turn the other cheek or turn away from it and
Can't hear you.
in a humane way. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. If you treat people like they are less than human, if you take away their dignity and respect while they're in one of your facilities, when they are released, what kind of behavior do you think you're going to see? So I am all for making sure that we have programs to help people re-enter society, re-enter the Alameda County, so that they can develop tools. Because if we're only disciplinarians, if we only want to discipline people and that's it, what is going to happen once they are released? They're going to become the disciplinarians. They're going to become the ones who are violent and who are angry and who are upset behind the way they were treated. So there are things that we can do to change the outcome. And Pamela and I both see that the Office of the District Attorney plays a role, as well as the sheriff. What I want to close with is this. I'm very concerned about the over 1,200 rape kits that have not been assessed. Why not? I'm concerned about the budget. We don't know where the money is going, how it's being used. All of that information is very, very, I want to say, for lack of a better word, secret, because nobody seems to know what's happening. So for me, if I am selected to be the next sheriff in Alameda County, there are some things that I need to do. There is some investigation that needs to be done so that I can understand where the money is going, what is happening when people come into Santa Rita Jail who may be mentally ill or who may have some sort of break with reality. What are the rules and regulations, the policies, the procedures, the oversight, and what about the supervisors? Somebody should be at least able to say something's not right with that person. We need to handle this in the way that's set up in our policies and procedures. I haven't seen any of that yet. So there's a lot of work to do. I've just given you a couple of examples using the 3 points that I basically outlined, which is accountability, criminal justice reform, and community, the relationship between community and the police. Because in certain parts of Alameda County, the unincorporated parts, the sheriff, the deputy sheriffs are the police. So everyone has got to be trained. Everyone has got to be held accountable for the decisions that they make, and it's got to be consistent across the board. If we want a better future, we have to make better decisions today. Hiring me, voting for Pam is one way to get that started. Thank you.
Wow. All right. Thank you. So, Pamela and Joanne, should we just open questions now? Is that how you want to
Sure.
do it? Or do you want to say how
Yes.
you're working together more? Or what do you guys want to do?
I can just say quickly, it's a slate, as you all are familiar with slates. Joanne obviously is her own independent person, so she has her own website and her own campaign account. And so you have to donate separately to her as an independent candidate. However, we are running together because we know that Ahern and O'Malley have been running together and collaborating and financing each other for decades. In our race in 2018, Sheriff Ahern transferred $50,000 from his campaign account into an independent expenditure PAC to support Nancy O'Malley and gave her money. The Deputy Sheriff's Association also supported O'Malley. I mean, all the police associations supported O'Malley, but the sheriff and Nancy O'Malley have had a very cozy relationship for a very long time. And so it's only fitting that we challenge both of them. And they are 2 of the 4 members of the Public Safety Department for Alameda County. So we are running on a joint platform of criminal justice reform and accountability. So that's how we're running. And then we're happy to have questions.
Okay, so for anybody that wants to question, say who you want the question directed at also. Okay, we're open now for questions.
Okay. I see Michael Chang. You're mute.
Okay, I see Ruskell. Ruskell, do you want to start it?
I have a question. This is Michael.
Oh,
Yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
We'll get Ruskell next.
This is actually directed to Officer Walker, but Pamela, you're welcome to chime in if you want. The police, American police carrying gun has been a long tradition, a lot of historical baggage in it. I think that a lot of the issue that caused by police is the fact that they're carrying guns. I know this is a very difficult situation because of the prevalence of guns in our American society. What is your opinion of slowly changing the police officers not carrying guns? And the second question is specifically to Officer Walker. In your encounters, how many percentage of your encounters that a gun inhibit your work?
Okay, I'm going to answer the second question first. Did you ask me how many of my encounters was it necessary that I had to use a gun? Is that what you're saying? Or
the gun? Yeah, that could be the implicit answer, but the explicit question is, you think the gun actually inhibited your work?
What I can say is it wasn't the gun, it was the uniform. When people initially saw me in uniform, some people were very open and wanted to chat, and other people were clearly afraid. And so they backed off. When I saw that, I recognized it as fear. And so what I did was, once that situation, that particular incident was over, I went back during a time when it wasn't a highly volatile situation. And I introduced myself to the community. And I told them I was here to protect them, that I'm here because I swore to protect and serve you. Whenever you see me, if you don't want to talk, it's okay. But I want you to remember that I'm here to help you, and you have a friend in the police department. That's how I built my infrastructure initially. Then afterwards, when the community saw my work, they were the ones to let me know that they felt safe. They were the ones, whether or not they spoke English well or not so well, they came up to me and said, you're a good one. I didn't ask for it and was shocked when I heard it more than once from a variety of people in the community. Also, I got out of my car and they would see me walking alone. The majority of my career, I have been an officer who didn't have a partner. So I walked alone. I rode and drove alone, and they began to ask the question, why is it that you don't have anyone who's riding with you? Why are you doing all this yourself? I said, because you're the community and I swore to protect and serve you. I'm here for you. So they began to talk among themselves, and they came up with, you know what? You seem to be doing the same kind of work with everybody we see you deal with, whether it's children or the aging population, whether it's people who are in school or out, people who are criminals or not. The community were the ones who said, we trust you. It wasn't me, even though I could say it, and I did, but they had to believe it based on what they saw me do. So it wasn't the gun, it was the uniform. And I had to overcome the barrier that the uniform presented in specific communities. So in order to do that, I had to go back and do my homework. I had to read up on the history, what happened in the community, anybody in their family affected by the police, what happened, how did they respond to it, and then I had to show them another side. So that's how I got around that aspect of the uniform and the gun. Okay, in terms of your first question, am I going to be someone who says that the police should not have guns? I have not even entertained that question up until today, because no one has ever asked me that question before. The only thing I can tell you right now is that for the time being, the weapon is a part of the uniform. And until we move forward and there is some more discussion on whether or not we should or should not have a weapon, I'll have to deal with that when it comes up. But I want to tell you what I did do to help understand how effective you can be without a gun. I started volunteering at suicide prevention in Alameda County, where I dealt with people who were in crisis, and I didn't have a badge, didn't have a weapon, and I had to communicate with them. I learned from that experience and I took it right to the street. So it didn't matter if I had the weapon or not. I had the advanced communication skills to do what needed to be done, and I did it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is going to come from Ruskell.
Hi, Pam. Hi, Joanne. Joanne's the first time to speak with you. And I supported Pam in her first DA race along with Javanka, and happy to support both of you this round. In regards to the sheriff's budget, which their 2019-20 annual budget is almost $500 million, and the county supervisors voted 3-2 to give an additional $85 million to the sheriff's office. So we're looking at over $500 million annual budget. How would you reinvest that budget back into the community?
That's a very good question, and I'll answer it by simply saying this. The information regarding the budget seems to be very secret, and we don't have all of that information yet. What I do know is that the budget has increased exponentially, And the amount of people who are in Santa Rita today don't measure up to what it was, let's say 5-10 years ago. So the question is, where's the money going? How is the money being used? And if there is a discrepancy of any sort, then the question is, what would I do with the money and how would I reinvest it in programs or in some areas that would be more effective for the community? So unfortunately, because I don't have access to the real budget so I can look at it line by line, I first need to get someone to analyze it so that we can sit down together and find out where money is being spent. And then I would make a decision on how I could reinvest it in the community to stabilize the community.
Yeah, thank you, Joanne. Looking forward to supporting you and Pam.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thanks for asking the question, Roscoe. The next question is coming from Kate Harrison.
Hi, Joanne. We haven't met before. I'm on the Berkeley City Council, and I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about relationships between the sheriffs and local law enforcement. We're often told when we try to limit what our police are allowed to use in crowd control situations that that's not possible because then the sheriff will not come to our aid when we need them. In other words, if you don't do what we want in mutual aid in Oakland, we won't send people to you to help you if there's a problem. So I'm very concerned about this control that the sheriff's office seems to exercise over our policies through this threat, essentially. And then the other end of it is the relationship between the sheriff's office and the other sheriffs in the region. As you know, Sheriff Ahern has been the head of the sort of regional coalition of sheriffs, which determines how our UASI funding is utilized and has refused to let us look at more reasonable ways of emergency preparedness. This is something that former council member Davila was very instrumental in bringing up as a question repeatedly. We don't have to spend UASI money on armaments. We don't have to spend UASI money on Urban Shield. We can spend emergency preparedness money on getting our communities prepared for an actual disaster like earthquakes. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are about working with us in local government at the city level. And then just one other question that's a little bit different, just as kind of a yes, no. Are you open to the ideas of revising the sheriff's role by one, removing the coroner function, perhaps reforming the bailiff system, so and looking at us returning to bailiffs? I work in the courts, by the way, that's fine. Interested in that. And also the reform movement to not require sheriffs to have a criminal justice background. So those are my questions.
Okay, those are all of your questions in one. Okay, so then let me just say this, that I am under the old rule, and I know that you are all in the process of changing the requirements to become a sheriff. So my understanding is that basically you just have to be someone who has an advanced, it's not an advanced degree, it's a certificate from Post. All right, that says, hey, look, I've been in law enforcement, I do understand certain things, and so here I am. Well, I have a whole lot more than that. And the reason why this is so important to me is because I never thought that it was okay for a person to just be one-dimensional and that's it. One-dimensional means all I do is look at law enforcement or public safety from one dimension, and that's it. It's kind of like looking at a problem and you think that you need to just put a hammer, a nail in it and a hammer. You only see it one way. I am saying that we need to change that vision of public safety, that we need to open up and let other people help us so that we can deliver better services. So yes, I am open. I am very open to changing some of the things that we see happening right now. I don't think that it's just, I think it's good to have a background in public safety and in law enforcement and in criminal justice. You need to have that so that you understand the nuances, but that shouldn't be the only thing that you have. You should have lived, you should have seen things from another view. You should have been out of the country for a while to see how other people do things. You should go around and see how other sheriff departments are doing things. This isn't just my situation. This is our situation. And I say that because in order to keep law enforcement safe and in order to keep the public safe, we have got to work together, period. That's how it's going to happen. And if you cut people out and make them feel as though their voices don't matter, then when you really need them, they're not there for you. So in terms of local government, yes, I would work with local government. I have already gone through CORE. That's communities organized to respond to emergencies. I've taken children to help them understand how they can keep their families safe. I have also made sure that I have gone through training, emergency preparedness training through Alert in San Francisco, because it's important to me to understand what you as a regular citizen would experience when you hear the police aren't going to be here to help you for 72 hours and maybe for a week. You have got to have your supplies, your materials. You've got to check in with your family. You've got to be prepared for this because you might not get any help from us. That's a very scary thought for someone who is in a wheelchair or
Can I
who
just
can't.
ask you more directly? Will you commit to coming to our aid, even though we do not use weapons chosen by the sheriff's office? I need a yes or no. I don't want to hear.
Oh, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. That's not a,
because we don't agree.
That's not a problem. The answer to that is yes. That's not a problem.
Okay. And what about the whole issue about redirecting emergency funding? I was really disappointed we didn't get further with that. So what Sheriff Ahern did was turn down the UOSI funding in sort of a fit of pique, instead of saying, hey, the communities don't want this. Let me do something else with this money that might be more useful. What are your thoughts about how we might use that funding more effectively?
My thought is that we have to listen to those people who are directly impacted by the funding or the lack thereof. If you're telling me as your sheriff that there are certain things that you need in your community in order to make sure that you are prepared for emergencies that come up, it's my responsibility to listen and to act. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're really getting late on
My
time.
responsibility to listen.
Pamela, there are two more questions. Do we have time for them if they're short?
If they're very short, unfortunately, you all, we have another engagement at 6 o'clock. So we were happy to come here, but we gotta go.
Okay, we have two questions and they need to be questions where they can be asked in just a few words and answered short. The first one is Rivka. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes. So when Pamela ran before, there were two problems, among others. One, even the Democratic establishment did not back her. Number two, South and East County didn't support her as much as, say, Berkeley and Oakland. So I'm just wondering how you're going to address that this time and how we can help you with those two problems.
So let me correct what I said. I have to leave pretty much right at 6. Joanne can stay for another 15 minutes because as long as I go and start, and our campaign manager is on here, so I know she'll help me with this. So as long as we go and start this, then Joanne can join us after. She can give you a little more time, and I appreciate that. I know you all are scheduled to end at 6 o'clock anyway, but
well,
so
we can go on as long as there's people.
Okay. To answer my friend Rivka's question, hello Rivka, good to see you.
Hello.
I love your shirt there. For
Thank
those
you.
who don't know, Rivka and I were activists a long time ago in some prior lives at UC Berkeley. So we've been together for a while, but you're right that the Democratic Party establishment not only did not support us, they actively opposed us, including the Berkeley mayor, which was very disappointing. I heard him at the Martin Luther King program recently talk about Black Lives Matter and how he loves racial justice. And I thought, this man has supported racist policies. He's just straight up supported Nancy O'Malley, which is crazy. So now you hear a lot of people saying, oh, Black Lives Matter, and I believe in racial justice. And I challenge you to ask them, where were you in 2018? Because the statistics that I told you about are from 2018. And the problems, the racial disparities in our criminal justice system are not new. They are ingrained. They were perpetuated by the incumbent and her predecessors, and the Democratic Party establishment supported those racist policies in 2018 and before. And there's no getting around that. And whether they will continue to do that is an open question. In this day and time, in the racial reckoning post George Floyd season, I cannot, and I'm a member of the Alameda County Democratic Party Central Committee, I cannot guarantee you that they are not going to continue to support racism in Alameda County. I have not seen that come to pass yet. We're working on it, but I can't guarantee you that. Most of the elected officials in this county, Black and white, Latino, Native Americans, supported the racist regime, the racist administration of justice in Alameda County. And I'm not biting my tongue about that, because that is the truth.
So those of us
whether
who
or not,
have the ear of them should be talking to them and holding them accountable.
you should be talking to them. Keith Carson, the progressive member of the Board of Supervisors, told me personally that he had to go along with endorsing and supporting Nancy O'Malley because he is part of the establishment of the county, and he felt compelled to have to work with the people in the county. He felt compelled to endorse her, and did so publicly, and then campaigned for her. Nate Miley campaigned for her. Wilma Chan endorsed her. So we have a political establishment that was willing to sacrifice Black and brown people in 2018. And I hope that after post George Floyd, that they won't be willing to do that again. But I can't guarantee that. And we can't rely on that. Dr. King did not wait for white clergy to tell him it was okay to start the Montgomery bus boycott. Okay. So that's where we are right now. We can't wait on people who are used to supporting the status quo, who are comfortable with the status quo. We cannot wait on them. We have to move forward, and we have to challenge the status quo. I will say to you that Berkeley, we did not win Berkeley, and it was a great disappointment to me, given the radicalism of our revolution and the efforts that you all made and the support that we had of wonderful elected officials like Kate Harrison and some of her colleagues on the Berkeley City Council, but we did not win Berkeley. And that should not happen again. That should not be your legacy. I have to tell you that in Alameda County, most of our votes came from outside of Oakland and Berkeley. So I don't take it lightly that people in Fremont and Pleasanton and Union City voted for a change. Most of our votes came from outside of Berkeley and Oakland, okay? So we need to do better and more in South County, because what they heard, but it's true in the Berkeley Hills as well, it was fear that was used to scare people. And so we have to just get to people early and let them know you cannot be afraid of change. And this Diana Becton, I cite her. She was the first Black woman elected as district attorney in Contra Costa County, and the sky did not fall. Okay. Courts are still open. People are still being prosecuted. Justice is still being administered. So Alameda County needs to understand the sky is not going to fall if you elect a Black woman. Don't get it's going to be all right. Okay. So that's
Okay.
what you need to tell people. Thank you, you guys. I gotta go. I wish I could stay longer, but I do have to go.
Thank you so much, Pamela.
Yeah,
We'll be in
of
touch
course.
shortly.
Thank you all so much. Please donate as much as you can. Spread the word, volunteer. We're going to be tabling. I know you all are good at tabling. We got a lot of work to do. So thank you, Carol, and thank you, Candace, and thank you all for being who you are and doing what you do. Appreciate
Okay,
you all.
we'll see you soon.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, we have one more question, and that'll do it on questions, and that's Kabir.
Yeah. Hey there,
Okay.
Joanne. I actually already got the chance. I already got the chance to kind of ask this to Pam on the town hall we had a few weekends ago. So it's cool to ask you this to ask this question. I've spent the last few years working in the cannabis industry, and one of the things that people I used to describe this to people is I used to get paid in cash, and you have to get paid in cash under the cameras in front of your managers and count it all to make sure it's all there. And every time I did this, I thought paying taxes with this money and it going to continue to incarcerate people and it going to continue to police departments, right? It seems so hypocritical knowing the history of this country. So I kind of want to know, I kind of want to ask this, as a question going forward in the campaign, maybe is something you all take on about maybe to address the way that so much tax dollars is coming from cannabis into the state of California and now all around the country. And I would bet all the weed I have right now that most of that has gone back into law enforcement. And that seems really hypocritical and problematic. So I kind of just want to hear your thoughts on what could be done to maybe change that dynamic in this country, in the state and in the country.
Oh. Okay, well, I understood your concern a little bit differently than just a question. I understood that you were saying that so much of the money that you make, taxes go to what you think might be law enforcement, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that tells me that you're uncertain. So what I need to do is find out if your concerns are actually backed up by the actual information that I'm able to get.
Let me be a little bit more specific. I know that the local money that does go towards law enforcement because local city budgets, the majority of them are law enforcement in general across the state of California. So that's what I do know. The state and the county ones, I'm not so sure about. So that's what I want to look into. But at least for local cities, like the city of Berkeley, that is going back into the general fund, and a huge portion of the general fund goes to fund the police. So that's kind of the question I was asking. That's the data I know for a fact.
Okay, so then what I want to do is find out how much of that money from the general fund actually goes into, first of all, law enforcement, and then second of all, what do they do with it? All right, so it's going back to law enforcement, but how is law enforcement using it? And for what purpose? So there are things that need to be done now at this particular time as I'm moving along this journey toward becoming the next sheriff in Alameda County. I need to find out so that the next time we talk, I can give you some specifics. I don't have those specifics with me at this particular time. But if what you're telling me is true, then I need to take a look at that and see how we can let's say just redirect those funds so that they can really be more effective in the community. That's where I'm coming from. I want the community to benefit. In order for the community to benefit, the community needs to get access to funds, and those funds need to be directed in such a way that there's accountability on the community side. So whatever organization gets the money, they have to be able to report and let us know what they're doing with the money and how the money is improving lives. That's where I am with it.
Cool.
Oh, okay. All right. I think we're kind of out of time for questions. It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too, Carol.
We're really glad that you're here. I'm sure that a lot of us will have contact with you over the next several months.
I hope so.
In working on your campaign and attending other events that you're at. So thanks very much for being here. And do you want to say anything to complete?
I would like to say thank you. It has been my honor to be here to listen to your questions and to hear what your concerns are. This is not the first time I've done anything in the community where I had to listen, because that is a skill that we need to really use in order to formulate plans that are sustainable and that meet the needs of the community. So I'm here for the long haul. I want your support. I need your support. And I hope to see you in the future again at some event where we can again talk about some of the issues and see where we've come from today. So thank you.
Okay, and thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay, folks, we have a couple
Carol,
other things to talk about. One is in the next couple days, we're going to be sending out ballots to OREB members so they can vote on who we endorse. Of the three women that were here tonight, all very powerful progressives. And to vote in our elections, there's two things. There's one, you have to pay a membership fee, which is if you're a senior or a student or low income, it's $12 a year. And otherwise, we ask that it's 27 or more per year, whatever you want to donate. Anyway, so that can be done through PayPal. And the other requirement to vote, besides being a paid member, you need to have participated with us. And the way it read originally was like at least once in the past 3 months and that, but because of COVID, we're kind of a little slack on that. You have to attend a couple of events. This counts tonight as one of them. If you've in the past year been to another one, that would count. And so Jake, do you happen to know offhand our email account, PayPal, how they would pay?
If they go to our website, ourrevolutioneastbay.org.
Okay.
There's a link that says join us, pay now, or it says donate or pay dues. And then on there is the PayPal link.
So anybody that does that by tomorrow night at midnight, Monday night at midnight, will be included in this vote. So if you're not already a member or not current with your membership, please do that if you would like to have your vote count. Okay.
How do we find out if we're current members?
You're current. I happen to know that.
Okay.
So if anybody else doesn't know, if they'd write to us and ask us, we can look that up. I don't have it handy myself. Okay, the other things that we need to talk about. Jake, do you want to talk for a couple minutes about our great town hall we just had and future ones?
Sure. So last Saturday, January 30th, we had our first in our Justice Town Hall, and it went really good. We had 4 awesome speakers. Pamela was there, Chase Abudin from San Francisco DA, Dr. Jody Armour, and Dr. Bilal Ware. And we just had a wonderful discussion about basically the history of criminal justice. And Pamela gave a detailed history of the criminal justice in California. And we had a lot of great questions. They are on our YouTube and Facebook page. So if you go to our Facebook, Our Revolution East Bay Facebook, or our Revolution East Bay YouTube, you can find those there. Definitely check them out and definitely share them, or share them even if you don't want to watch them. That's fine too. And just let everyone watch them. They were really good. I mean, we went over 45 minutes. Yeah, we went over 45 minutes because the discussion was just so good, and I didn't want to stop anyone.
Yeah, it was really good.
And so the next one we're going to do is going to be environmental justice. We're going to try and work with Sunrise Movement, local Bay Area or East Bay area, and get with them. And hopefully we'll get a set of speakers and a date. The date we're probably shooting for is like March 30th-ish. Probably do like every 2 months. And Yeah, I mean, that was it. Anything else, Carol? Did I forget anything?
I think that's it. Do you have anything to say about the public housing?
Public housing or public banking?
Public banking, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, public banking is going great. We're very close to building a public bank in the East Bay. We got Gary Findley to start the actual paperwork and the process. We're doing fundraising, but now there's a lot of foundations that are interested, so we may actually get the funds faster. And then more and more elected officials are interested. And now there's public banking going on in New York. New York may actually beat us, which is going to make us really mad because we've been doing this for so long and they just started, but they have they're almost their entire state senate behind it. And San Francisco is going to start one soon. They're going to start it as a revolving account and try to build it into a public bank. And then Los Angeles County is going to try to do a regional one. And hopefully that's going to go well. Also, on the federal level, Rashida Tlaib and AOC have introduced a public banking bill, which would be super helpful for us in California because it creates a new type of insurance, which we need because AB 857 requires us to have FDIC insurance, even though $250,000 per account is nothing compared to what the cities are going to deposit. It's not even going to insure pretty much any of their funds. So that's going on, and hopefully, there's a lot of stuff going on. So we're just continuing working on that. And if you want to check out more, go to publicbankeastbay.org. And we're actually redoing that website, but we have a lot of information on there. All right, I've talked enough.
Great, thanks so much. Matthew, when is this going to be on our website? We have a question about that, and if so, when? And then after you answer that, go ahead and give a report on social media.
Yeah, we are live streaming right now to YouTube and Facebook, Chris, and whenever we're done streaming, it'll automatically go. So if you go to our YouTube page, just go to YouTube and just look up Our Revolution East Bay, and it'll pop up for our channel. And then you'll be able to see the meeting and the town halls there too. And if you're already on our Facebook page, you can see the same thing there.
Okay, great. Matthew, do you want to give a short wrap up of what you've been doing or what you plan on doing with the social media?
Yeah, but before I do, the link for donating via PayPal, I put that in the chat a few minutes ago when folks are asking for that. So it's ourrevolutioneastbay.org/donate, and I'm going to post that again just to make it even easier for folks. Not too many updates around social media. We got started with the Instagram account now. This is the first time I've ever used an Instagram account. So it's kind of interesting. It's a bit different from Facebook and Twitter. But yeah, not too much news on the social media or the website. What I would say though is everybody should make sure to follow our Twitter account as well as like the Facebook account. And then one way you can help us build out who we, reaching more people is, go, log. If you have a Facebook account, please log into Facebook. Go to our Facebook page, Our Revolution East Bay, and then invite all of your friends to like the page. And it's relatively easy to just mass invite everybody, and that helps us to really get the word out to more folks so that because generally people only will see our stuff if they already like the page. There's a few ways we can sometimes get some other folks who don't already like our page, but the really big way we need to do it is to get people to like our page, and that helps. And that way they can find out about the existence of our organization, start getting involved, know who we've endorsed. So please, if everybody who's on the call can do that like right now, that'll be super helpful to the organization.
And share or like one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I said share or like one thing on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube page too.
Okay, I think we've pretty much covered everything. The very last thing before we close with more music, we always let anybody that wants to make a 1-minute announcement, go ahead and make an announcement. Would anybody like to make an announcement tonight or ask a question before we?
Could I go first before my phone dies?
Yes.
Yeah, so the Berkeley Tenants Union is going to be having a membership meeting this coming Saturday, February 13th, virtually, of course. It'll be from 5 to, meeting will start at 5 p.m. The big focus of the meeting is going to be the status of the eviction moratorium in Berkeley. We'll also be talking about other topics as well. For instance, Friends of Adeline will be talking about issues they're working on and what happened with the city overruling community work in the Adeline corridor. We'll also have speakers from the Oakland Tenants Union talking about what they've been doing, and some other speakers that we're working to confirm. So it'll be a really great meeting. And yeah, so once again, it's February 13th at 5 p.m. That's this coming Saturday. And to find it, just type in Berkeley Tenants Union on Facebook. If anybody's not on Facebook, just shoot me, just post in the chat, and I'll help you get that information.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, next person who has their hand up is Sherry. Go ahead, Sherry.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having Pamela and Joanne. And I just wanted to say real quick, if you go to, if you just Google Pamela Price for DA or Joanne Walker for sheriff, there's a place there where you can join the campaign. And it's very exciting. We're starting early. And one of the things that you mentioned is about the South County. We're doing a real great job of organizing. We've sort of divided the county into 3 segments, and we're going to have people who are kind of in charge of each area. So there's a lot of work going on to get these 2 wonderful people elected. And then I also want to just say really quickly that we've also started up Medicare for All in California again, called CalCare. And I don't know, I'm hoping that a lot of you were either listening to our honking or part of our honking yesterday. We really feel this is a time with the Democratic leadership nationally and the supermajority that we have in California, but it's going to take a lot of political will, which is a lot of political nagging, calling your electeds and saying it's time for California to have universal health care. Thank you so much. I love you guys.
Thanks, Sherry. The next person is Igor.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much for the wonderful program. I learned a lot. I just wanted to also thank everyone who joined the Sierra Club. I am running for the national board. I am one of the very few immigrants and one of the very few millennials that will have the opportunity to serve on the board in the club's history, if elected. If you are a member, you will be getting a ballot real soon, either at the end of this month or the beginning of March. So look out for that. I've been honored to earn endorsements from many environmental and environmental justice leaders, including a number of leaders of the Sunrise Movement in the Bay Area, and would be very honored to earn your support as well. And thank you so much again.
Okay, thanks so much. I recently joined Sierra Club, by the way.
Thank you so much, sister.
Okay, the next comment or question or announcement is Rivka.
Okay, 2 criminal justice reform matters coming up at the City Council in Berkeley. This Tuesday, the 9th, there will be a consideration of a no confidence vote in our police chief, sponsored by Cheryl Davila. And it would be great to have people make public comment. And on February 23rd, also a Tuesday at the City Council, they're going to consider, the mayor had a task, a working group on fair and impartial policing, which met for a year and has delivered a whole host of important recommendations to achieve fair and impartial policing. So the City Council is going to consider those recommendations on the 23rd. So the meetings are start at 6, but it can be a long agenda. So if you go to the Berkeley City Council website, you can look at the agenda and get an idea of what time it might come up. But public comment is very welcome, sending written public comment and sending letters or emails about these things is very welcome. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, folks, we're at 6:21. Time to get out of here. Thanks to everybody who came and was part of this. And we'll have a little music as we close out.
This is from the women's garment strike in Lancaster, Massachusetts, many years ago, and it's where the Bread and Roses emerged from. As we go marching in the beauty of the day, 1,000,000 darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill lofts gray, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching, we battle too for men, for they are women's children, and we mother them again. I love that line. Our life shall not be sweetened from birth until life closes. Our hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we go marching, we bring the greater days. For the rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, tend that toil where one reposes, but the sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching in the beauty of the day, 1,000,000 darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill lofts gray, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We always love it.
Okay, I'm glad.
Okay.
Since we had so many women speaking tonight, that we would sing a song that was really dedicated to the women and their struggle as working women.
You know, for me, I've heard the term bread and roses, but I never before knew what it was or where it came from. So I appreciate that.
And there's there used to be a concert every year in Berkeley in the Greek theater of the Bread and Roses, and you hear that expression a lot. If anybody else knows more about it, I can share it. Okay.
Cool. So should I stop the streaming, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. Good night, everybody. We love you. Thank you for being here. You can watch the